back, everyone, once again to a new installment of Screenplay Rewind. I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron.
And I'm going to be honest, I feel really unprepared this week for the show. We were starting our recording, and I was like, oh shit, do we have questions? And Ron had no, we don't have any questions. I was like, well, fuck, I hadn't even thought to do that. And usually I'm the person to remember to do that, so that's not a good sign.
Yeah, but we usually remember as we're hitting start, and then both of us are scrambling to see if we can get to the email first.
True.
There's that. The one thing I haven't been keeping with it, I need to make sure that we don't have any ratings or reviews on Apple or Spotify or anything. Last I saw, we still had 1 5-star rating on Apple.
Hell yeah.
We're
perfect. 1 for 1.
Exactly.
Well, I never feel too bad about not having reviews on stuff, because if you actually just go poke around on Apple or any of these actual super famous podcasts, they'll have 500 bajillion subscribers and 2,000 reviews because people just don't bother to do it. So I never even really think twice about it. It's helpful, but
yeah,
it's
how you get the algorithm to pick you up is ratings and reviews, but
yeah, it's weird that they pick the most abstract thing that nobody does as the main kind of the way it spearheads its way through the algorithm. I've never really understood that.
Yeah, I've never really got it either.
I feel like the only platform that actually does well with setting up its own algorithms is YouTube, because you'll notice channels they'll pop up and they actually just kind of take off because they are making good content, where you can be a small channel, and if you have a niche thing or something that's actually just solid content, it'll get picked up eventually, and then it just does its work.
Well, not only that, I don't know how many people know this, but a lot of people may not comment, they may not like, share, subscribe, but they do like that dislike button. And I don't know how many people know this, but it's the same thing. Liking or disliking in YouTube is the exact same action. All they care about is the interaction. They don't care about
really
whether you liked it or not. So
it's
if
bad news is good news.
Yeah, if you dislike a channel, it's still going to get picked up by the algorithm because it's interaction.
I wonder if that dude that was calling us boring was dislike, or hell yeah, rake it in the views. Actually, to anyone checking us out over YouTube, because the last few YouTube videos have been doing really well for us.
Yeah,
and I don't know what started that, but yeah, if you're checking us out over YouTube, welcome.
I think it was that guy.
And, I think it was that guy.
I think it was that guy. He got us plugged into the.
He was not the hero
algorithm.
He was not the hero we needed, but he was the hero we deserved.
Yeah, I don't know what happened over there, but we're getting some hits on some things over there. It's crazy. It's doing better than the actual podcast, and the podcast is on I don't know, 50 platforms.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
well.
nuts.
To be fair, people that are actually human only use 2 or 3 of those 50 platforms.
Yes, I know.
But we did have a comment. We didn't have any questions, but we did have a comment that I was gonna throw in with the podcast. So on one of our most recent episodes, it could have been the most recent one. I don't fucking know. I've slept since then.
It was on Princess Bride.
Okay. We had a question presented by myself, basically asking Ron if there was one actor he'd like to see reprise a specific role on the heels of Michael Keaton coming back as Batman. Which actor he would like to see come back. And I don't think you have an answer yet to this day. Maybe never will. In true Ron fashion. But our buddy Bobby does. Bobby jumped in the comments and said he would like to see Thomas Jane return as the Punisher, which I would watch that. Did you ever see he did a YouTube video coming back as the Punisher? Do you remember that being a thing? Yeah, there was a YouTube short with Thomas Jane back as the Punisher. It wasn't officially sanctioned. It wasn't where he's ever, I think, called the Punisher or Frank Castle or anything, but he is his character, and it's just one of those that's unspoken.
Is it Kmart Punisher, he's wearing a Jolly Roger instead of the skull because they don't want to get sued?
Maybe. I remember this being a thing. I haven't seen it in quite some time. I remember it being pretty cool, just because Thomas Jane has apparently just always looked back fondly on that character, and his performance of it was good. I liked him as that character. So what did you think about seeing Thomas Jane as more
dude,
Punisher stuff?
I always need more Thomas Jane in my life, and he was a fucking amazing Punisher.
Yeah, he was really good.
And I love that movie because one of my favorite movie villains is John Travolta. So having Thomas Jane Punisher versus John Travolta mafioso, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean that movie. It probably has like some problematic things, just being a superhero movie from like 25 years ago. But I liked it. I thought it was fine. Man, although the movie I will always most place Thomas Jane like to be synonymous with is Deep Blue Sea.
I was going to say Deep Blue Sea.
Of Deep Blue Sea when I think because that was like the movie that put him on the map, right? Wasn't that the first movie that like really got him into? I feel like he's always been underrated. Even did you ever watch his show that was a big hit, like the Hung show? Did you ever watch that?
No, I never
I heard
have.
that was damn good, and he was damn good in it. I just haven't ever checked it out.
Yeah, no, Thomas Jane's great. I will always take more Thomas Jane than anything.
Yeah, I really like Thomas Jane. And I have a question for you this week, Ron. By the way, we will eventually be talking about the Three Musketeers, but forgive the usual hour and a half preamble that Ron and I started off the show with.
You have a question? I probably do not have an answer.
Yeah, it will be Ron trying to stall for time and never getting enough time to figure out the answer, but that's okay. It's okay. It's just Bobby might have an answer. We can rely on Bobby in the comments. So there you go.
Yeah, he'll leave another cryptic comment that I have no idea what it means.
All right. So we are covering the Three Musketeers from 1993, correct?
Yes.
All right. This is a novel adaptation from Alexander Dumas.
Yes.
What is a book that you would like to see adapted into a movie that has not been adapted yet? Because you listen to more audiobooks than I do. So I feel like you might have something up your sleeve.
Let's see. For a movie.
Yeah.
What would make a good movie? I know since they are series, it's usually easier to adapt them into series. But what is a book I would like to... Let me peruse Audible real quick in my
because you listen to audiobooks like basically constantly in the background while you're doing stuff around the house, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, because you've listened to like 50 from that one sci-fi series alone.
Yeah, I got that. It's not as long, but The Messenger would probably be pretty good. But movie, I feel like it'd have to be more something like not. Hold on, I'm making them a series of looking at series instead of just individual books. Probably something like The Lock by Steve Alton would probably be better as a movie than a series.
And what is that one?
So Steve Alton's the guy that wrote The Meg.
Oh, okay.
And he actually has several different running series that are all kind of take place in the same universe. So there's a character that comes into The Meg that is actually from the Lock series.
That's cool. It's like interconnected universe style thing.
Yeah, it deals with like there's a secret ocean underneath the ocean floor that they find by accident, and there's like different dinosaurs and other types of things that shouldn't exist down there. There's Megs down there.
So is that like the origin of where the original Meg came from? It's like the extra ocean floor thing?
I think it's in a different part of the ocean. I think this one is kind of more north. But I think this is the Arctic Ocean. But it also deals with extraterrestrials and a bit of time travel. So like when the guy shows back up in the Meg, he has a laptop that has the location of like where the main guy Jonah and his son have been, but there's also pinpoints where they're on their way to and pinpoints past that, and all the timestamps are like future dated when Jonah finds it. Because
that's interesting.
When Jonah and his son showed up to help him in one of his books, Jonah's son died saving them. And then this book of the Meg, he comes into the Meg and he's trying to alter time so that David lives and things like that.
Gotcha.
But he has his own series, The Lock. It takes place in Scotland and it deals with the Loch Ness Monster and what the Loch Ness Monster actually is. And it goes all the way back to the Crusades and the Crusaders. And like he's a descendant of the Crusaders. and there is a treasure buried down there protected by the monsters that people just know as Loch Ness monsters, but they actually are called Guyvers, if I remember. Yeah. And they shouldn't have been able to surface, but something has happened that's making them surface and no one knows what to do about it. And he's a marine biologist, so he starts looking into it.
Gotcha.
And like discovers his who his dad is and what that means he is and how everything ties together. And there's this treasure down there and all the stuff from the Crusades, this holy relic. It's not really treasure. It's a holy relic that's hidden down there. Yeah, it's a pretty good book. I don't really like the sequel, but that one would make for a pretty good movie.
Yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. Speaking of the Meg, isn't there a sequel to the Meg coming out?
There sure is. There's like, I don't know how many of those books. I still have Audible up. Hang on. I have most of those books.
We saw the first Meg in the theater. We got to go see the second one in the
Damn
theater.
right.
I had a lot of fun watching that first movie. Like, that movie is kind of dumb in like all the best ways. I had a blast watching the Meg.
There are 7 Meg books.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I was shocked because, okay, so the second book before it got popular was just called The Trench. And the rest of them have Meg, like Meg, Primal Waters, Meg, Hell's Aquarium, Night Stalkers, blah, blah, blah.
Meg, who let you back in the house?
And I was surprised on that trailer. It was like Meg 2, The Trench or something. I'm like, that's the title of the book.
They said the thing.
They said the thing. That's why I'm Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Oh, that's why they called it that.
The Quest for Priests.
The Quest for Priests. That's one of my favorite Family Guy things. And he's just like, that's why they called it that.
Bro, did you know for $250,000 you can get in a submersible and go visit the Meg? It's pretty sick.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. I mean, the window's a little shoddy, but
there was a
is that too soon? I feel like it might be too soon.
It's not. Maybe for the 19-year-old, but fuck the rest of them.
Yeah, I feel really bad for that guy. The rest of them, fuck the
rest of them,
fucking dumbasses.
Do something better with your money. Yeah, there's a podcast I listened to where when one of the guys was reporting on the submersible going missing over the Titanic, the other guy immediately goes, "Oh, Meg got him," and he's like, "No, it didn't." And then he continues reporting on it. And then when he gets to the part where like the date and time that it went missing, he was like, "Oh, it had to be a giant squid." And he's like, "No, it wasn't." And he just kept going on and on with different monsters.
Oh my goodness. All right, yeah, before we get into a full-on tangent about us talking about how stupid billionaires can be, I will say my answer is probably already in the works because of how successful and how much money the first one did. Well, not really like the first one. It's not a series, but I think Project Hail Mary would be a really, really good movie.
We talked about it. We talked about it. It's already happening.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling.
I think that will work better. Now, granted, I'm only like 2 hours into it, so I'm like a fourth of the way into the book or something. I forget. I'm like either like a fourth or like a fifth. I'm like a couple hours into it.
I have been waiting since that book launched to talk to you about that book.
Yeah, I really like the format of him like jogging his memory and then doing a flashback at that point, because I think it kind of like opens up the cast a bit more. Because I think it will work better as a movie than his second novel. Like, was it Artemis? Was it the second one?
Yeah, I love Artemis.
I like Artemis a lot too, but I think Project Hail Mary will work better as a movie.
I don't know. Because of like the Artemis is a heist on the moon. I really like, and it's got like Russian crime bosses and like Ukrainian crime bosses involved. I don't know. I think a heist on the moon with a bunch of crime bosses would work.
I like the mystery element of like figuring out what's happening in like real time along with the character. Is just like a really cool structure. I like the structure of Project Hail Mary a lot. It's not like a diss against Artemis. It's just if you put like a gun to my head and said I had to pick one to have a movie made of, I think Project Hail Mary would be really cool.
Did I tell you?
Granted, I'm only like a fourth of the way into it, but I'm liking it a lot, and I'm excited to see what they do with it as a movie.
Also, that audiobook is really well done.
Yeah, it is.
There are some audiobooks that the book is good enough you continue, but the narrator, you're just like, oh my God. It sounds like they're standing up and reading for the teacher in an English class. But
I always have to
really
like pull up the little sample just to see if the narrator is going to be like obnoxious, because I have straight up like been interested in a book, like sought out the audiobook, listened to the sample, and then just like discovered how fucking like obnoxious the narrator is, and just completely lost interest in it. It's kind of sucks.
The Altered Carbon book series, I never listened to the third one because they changed narrators, and I was like, how bad can it be? And after about an hour in, I was like, nope. And I hit the refund button and went and got like, I don't know, another Meg book or something. I don't know. It was.
What was so bad about it?
They changed narrators, and he was awful. He sounded like he was reading a phone book, not a freaking sci-fi novel. Yeah. He just had no personality to him.
I do hope for
the first two were the same guy, and they were great.
I do hope that for Andy Weir's next novel, it isn't a smart-ass character in a sci-fi situation, because I understand that's like his shtick, but I would like to see him kind of like... 3. I would like, and they've all been really good.
And the ones that he did for Amazon and the ones that he did for Audible are that same way too. He's done like what, 4 or 5 for them.
Yeah, I just I would like to see him broaden out and try something a little bit different. He apparently had tried a more kind of prototypical science fiction, like more of like your Dune style science fiction instead of like a more modern, you got your Martian style character, like smartass in a modern situation. I know they're like slightly in the future, I think, in those books, but you know what I mean? It's more traditional science fiction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of like kind of like your traditional Andy Weir, he tried like a traditional science fiction novel in that type of realm, and kind of fucked it up and was not happy with it. So he went back to what he was good at. And I respect that. I would just be curious to see what he did outside of that landscape, outside of his comfort zone so far in his books, because I think he's really, really great at coming up with just like amazing pacing for his books. Like I never feel like I'm spending as much time reading or listening
that's
to
his best strength is his pacing.
It's great. I love that, because like like they're probably like one of the greatest writers of all time, Stephen King. I can't read most of his stuff because it is so lethargically paced and so detailed that I'm just like, I am more interested in the plot than like the specificity that Stephen King is obsessed with in most of his books. Yeah. So I like that about Andy Weir, where he is focused on the plot. I like that a lot.
I just recently abandoned a Stephen King book.
Which one?
The Institute, I think it's called.
I'm not familiar with that one. The only Stephen King book I have been able to finish recently, I've read a few of his books. I can't remember. Most of them were like I think his short stories are really strong because he doesn't have time in them to kind of like meander around and have 800 pages of nothing like sometimes. Like why is it 1300 pages long? It's like a murder alien clown. Why do we need 1300 pages of that?
Yeah, it's called The Institute by Stephen King.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be really, really good. And I think there was some TV show made off of it or something.
Yeah, and pretty much everything.
I was going to listen to it, and after a while, I was just like, I don't care, and I quit.
Yeah. That's what sucks too. It's like it's usually an interesting setup that then just really, really stalls out as he kind of takes like I think too many threads. I feel like sometimes he follows like too many characters, like too many points of like contact for the plot,
Yeah.
But one that I actually really liked of his that I was a recommendation from Cole from Watch Out for Fireballs. Have you ever heard of From a Buick 8?
No.
This is a cool one. You'll like it. It's Lovecraftian. So it takes place, I think they're in Texas. It's like a super small town, and it follows this sheriff's department who has discovered a car that randomly becomes like a portal to a different dimension.
Huh.
And they start to have like stuff come through the portal, and they end up having to like basically like put cameras and have like a 24/7 watch on this fucking car just in the chance that this weird shit happens. And it is one of his like shorter novels. I think like the audiobook only ended up
so
being,
it's like a million pages.
Yeah, it's only 30 days long instead of like 100 days long, But no, it was actually like pretty well paced for Stephen King, and I thought followed like the right amount of characters. It was very like streamlined for him, and I really liked it. So yeah, if you're browsing around for some Lovecraftian stuff, look up with your Audible credits that you get From a Buick 8 is pretty good. I liked it.
Just as a point of interest, Artemis by Andy Weir. Did I ever tell you who narrates it?
It's Rosario Dawson, right?
Yeah, and she's fucking awesome. And
she should play the main character if they ever turned it into a movie.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. That's exactly who I would have cast for that role.
Yeah, she'd be great.
Yeah, she is basically Jasmine in a nutshell. I believe that was the main character, right? Jazz.
Yeah.
She's basically Jasmine in a nutshell. So, but she's probably too busy, being a badass Jedi bitch. So.
Yeah.
Isn't she Ahsoka?
Yes, she is. I think that show comes out like next year or something?
Yeah.
Is it this year or next year? I forget.
I thought it was this year, but maybe it is
pretty close. Yeah, it's pretty close. It's not too far out. But yeah, I think we're going to switch over, unless you had anything else to add with that, to talk about the Three Musketeers. And
damn right.
Did you have anything else to add about our previous conversation, Ron?
No, I don't think I think we've covered way too many bases.
Yeah, we're starting to sound like Stephen King over here, man. We gotta get back on track.
We gotta start talking about how this lady loves like this specific snack as she knits.
Yeah. It's like, my God. She likes Pringles. Why are we having an entire chapter based on how much this lady likes Pringles? Man?
That's what it felt like. That's exactly what it felt like.
Like, please get back to the plot. Okay, Ron. First of all, spoilers for 1993's version of the Three Musketeers. I know you had elaborated a little bit on this selection at the ending of the previous episode when we announced it, but what led you to want to have this on the show?
I can't watch a movie like Princess Bride and not think of the Three Musketeers, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. And this came out in 1993, so I was 8 years old when it came out. I did not see it in theaters, but I have the VHS somehow. And I have worn that VHS out. I just kind of watched this movie on repeat. Like, sometimes I would sit and watch it. Sometimes I had it on while I was playing with whatever, but it was pretty much always running. And I think my love for France and French history and my love of anything Three Musketeers related is kind of from my childhood. Because this movie was such a good movie. I don't know. I think it's where I became such a big fan of Oliver Platt and Charlie Sheen also. And I get excited every time I see Michael Wincott somewhere. Anytime I run into any of these cast members, like, oh, they're from the Three Musketeers. And then I have to sit and watch it. It's
criminal how few things Michael Wincott's been in over the years.
Oh my God,
he's so fucking good at. Yeah, we'll talk about him in this. I encourage everyone to go check out this fucking movie.
It's on Disney Plus. You already have it. Just go watch it.
Yeah, you already have it. And if you're Googling it, the first thing you'll notice is probably like the 30% Rotten Tomatoes score. And I don't understand that by a long shot. Wow. I understand it's not like the greatest movie of all time, but what about this movie is offensive to the point to where it's only getting 30% positive? Like, that's bonkers to me.
It's probably because it's not as offensive as Alexander Dumas can be. It's the original. I don't remember finishing it. I think I dropped off because I just didn't go back. I don't remember there being anything wrong with it, but the original story this is based on is not tame. And especially in 2023 eyes, it's
I'll go ahead and ask that now because that's actually a question I had for you during this recording. Okay, so have you read the book like in its entirety?
Not in its entirety, I don't believe.
Okay. My question was,
it's been a while.
Has this or any adaptation actually been over the original story and not the kind of like Hollywood romanticization of the Three Musketeers?
I don't know if you're gonna get something that hardcore follows the story because they're assholes. I don't remember one of them. Is it Aramis or Athos? Someone has a slave that follows them around that they beat up all the time.
Really?
And stuff. Jesus. Yeah, they're assholes, man. Like in 2023, they're not necessarily people you might want to root for.
So they basically got turned into like Zorro, like Errol Flynn style characters.
It's probably more, accurate to the time period for sure.
Oh yeah,
there was nothing wrong with having slaves in 1600s or whatever, but we don't feel that way now. So that. But I don't remember it being, as far as like a story goes, right? I don't remember it being awful. I remember it being longer than it needed to be, but I had it on. I think what happened is if you have a library card, you can get access to audiobooks and ebooks and comic books just for free. And I think I started it there, and then I think our library switched to a different service. And I was like, well, I don't know where I was, and I'm not starting the fuck over, if I remember correctly.
What is this library you speak of? Is that
Right?
like Amazon for old people?
Pretty much. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. You can get movies. You can get
Walter.
CDs.
You're not wrong, Walter. You're just an asshole.
Yeah, because it is Amazon for old people, because it's books, it's movies, it's TV, it's CDs. You can literally just go to a brick and mortar place, show them your membership card, and then take things out and leave with it and not get arrested. So I
just imagine like that as a joke in like a Mel Brooks scene where it's like the main character is going to a library, and outside is like the like this local library sign, and underneath it in like a little quote says like, it's Amazon for old people.
Right. But yeah, they have to pay membership, right, to online libraries, unless your library is big enough to have its own. But we are not, and I guess they price shop, so every once in a while they change services, and you get an email saying we no longer use this service, follow this service. And I'm pretty sure, I remember there was one story, and I'm pretty sure it's Three Musketeers that I was about halfway through, and then I lost it, and I was like, nope, not starting that over. Maybe in the future.
That fucking sucks.
But yeah. My library card's where I watched the original Gone in 60 Seconds on this show. That's what I used. Was we used Hoopla for movies, and Hoopla had it in there, so I watched the Nicolas Cage version and the original, and so that was a journey.
Hoopla pro Nicolas Cage. I respect that.
Hey, all 50 issues. That's the entire run of Immortal Hulk is in Hoopla. So.
Oh, my dude. I sometimes sit back and think about how many TV shows, movies, games, comics, anime that I'm like, I want to check out and I'm behind on, and the one thing I often like will forget about is how many comics I want to read, and that's just like daunting as fuck. Like there's just so many fucking comics coming out constantly, and I don't know how they still manage to come up with like interesting stories for characters like Batman. Like this character's been around for 80 fucking years with just hundreds of issues every year. From like DC has like 5 different Batman books going concurrently, like at all times minimum.
Well, what you do when you need a break and trying to find the next creative thing is you make Batman Ninja.
There you go.
Did you ever see that movie?
I have not seen it. I remember you seeing it in like some of your reactions to it.
If you ever piss
priceless.
me off, I think I will have it on this podcast.
I mean, it's just a matter of when. Because I'm gonna piss you off eventually. So,
it was not good. I'm saying
it was not good.
It was not. Good.
And now someone has added it to their ammunition for friends and family.
Damn you, Soapy! Yeah.
I have never read the Three Musketeers, but I find it interesting how the kind of like perception for the characters just got straight up turned into like Zorro, where they're very romanticized. Like you said, like they weren't good people, because did good people exist back then? It doesn't really seem like it.
Do good people exist now?
That's also true.
See, and here's the thing.
But like if you think of like the 1600s, it's just like even like the quote unquote like good people, like the like better than the worst, like still had slaves and shit. So there's like all fucking terrible people. Yeah, it's not a good time.
Now, it's interesting you brought up Zorro, though, because that may be why I even fell in love with this movie to start with. Because I grew up watching the old black and white Zorro reruns, and I fucking love Zorro.
What do you think of the Antonio Banderas?
I love that
Zorro?
movie.
I haven't seen that.
The Mask of Zorro.
Yeah, Mask of Zorro.
Anthony Hopkins passing the mantle on. Anthony Hopkins. See, the brilliant thing about that movie is he's not just Zorro. Like, that movie starts with Anthony Hopkins is the one that you know and remember, but he's too old now. And
so it's like Zorro Beyond.
You know, like we talked about, like, oh yeah, Zorro, about the white man that comes in to save the brown men. Yes. Well, that movie literally corrects that, because he passes the mantle to Antonio Banderas, and then he dies, and Antonio Banderas is Zorro. So that's one thing that's interesting about that movie. Is that's kind of ahead of its time as far as that style of thinking.
So here's the question: What are your thoughts? I know we'll talk about the actual movie here eventually.
You keep claiming we will.
What are you? Speaking of segues, what are your thoughts on the Man in the Iron Mask?
I've never seen it.
You've never seen it? Okay, I was just looking at it because I remember this movie existed. Do you know who plays Aramis, Athos, and Porthos?
No.
Aramis is Jeremy Irons.
What?
Athos is John Malkovich, which is
what?
Yeah. And oh no, it's D'Artagnan is played by Gabriel Byrne, the dad from Hereditary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's Porthos?
Porthos is Gerard Depardieu. I'm sure you've heard of him.
I know the name.
Yeah.
I cannot think
I'm scrolling back through his IMDb on something you might recognize him from, because I definitely recognize the name. But yeah, I've always heard that movie is terrible, but it has a good cast.
Well,
so
also though, I've never heard anyone say anything good about a Three Musketeers movie, so
that's also true. Yeah, because like this one's really good, and everyone still fucking hates this movie. So I don't understand. I don't understand how you watched the Charlie Sheen one and have been expecting anything different from a '90s Three Musketeers movie that's like very, very like Stephen Sommers-esque tone.
Yeah,
you know, like very lighthearted adventure. It's like they're cracking jokes in my summer blockbuster, the 1993 movie. Fuck this movie. It's
right?
Like, what? What?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's dive into it. Let's what were you about to say? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yes, you did.
Speaking of,
it's a shame that the man in the Iron Mask was not Jeremy Irons.
Yeah,
it seems like it would be appropriate.
Who knows?
That's all I had. That's what you cut off. You should have just kept going. This is on you.
We're taking some Stephen King-esque side
It was
right
on
now.
Me until you hit the brakes and put it in reverse, and now it's on you.
That's fair. My bad. I'm sorry, everybody. All right, yeah, let's jump in. The Three Musketeers from 1993. I was all of 2 years old, so the first time I had actually seen this movie was when you were almost like beta testing rewatching this.
I really
right,
was.
via me.
I used you to rewatch it
because you fucking loved this movie as a kid. You were terrified to revisit it, thinking it might be bad because it would then would ruin your entire childhood.
It would ruin everything.
And you know, I'm more picky typically than you are.
Yes.
So if I watched it and liked it, you would absolutely fall back in love with it.
I think I said this at the end of the last episode, but this podcast is not designed to be sequential. So yeah, I told the story of I found it on DVD, I bought it, and then put it on my shelf, and that was it. I never did anything with it. And Jeff had said that he hadn't watched it, and I was like, "Oh, dude, it's good as far as I know." But here, I literally took the DVD down, ripped the shrink wrap off, and then gave it to him to go watch. So the first time I even opened it was for Jeff to go watch it on his own.
Damn straight.
Because I was so scared that maybe it wasn't good, and I just loved it because I was little and dumb. So I don't know.
Unfortunately, like you were able to like watch this again and like love it. Usually when I go back to stuff that I liked as a little kid, I fucking hate it and I feel really stupid. So I'm glad that you were.
I did not want that.
I am glad that you were able to have the opposite experience because I have no attachment to Three Musketeers at all.
You literally texted me. I believe it holds up or something like that.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, thank God.
Like Wipe the sweat from your brow.
Yeah, the first thing I did when you gave it back to me was I watched it. So I have used that DVD once, and you've used it once, and now we don't need to because we can get it in HD on Disney Plus.
Yeah, a lot of people always like, man, I don't want to not have like physical media. I'm so lazy. I love not having physical media. I like being able to boot up Disney Plus and it's just fucking there. It's like, yeah, it is kind of bullshit because the stuff you pay to own, you don't really own, but I will take the convenience factor over.
If there's a video game that I play often enough, like I own digital copies and physical copies of games. Like I got tired of swapping the disc out constantly to Hades, for instance.
Bought it again,
and I bought it again when it was on sale. I put it on a wish list, and when it went on sale, I bought it again. And then
so
I can leave the disc in there. I know I'm going to boot it up and do a couple of runs at some point, and constantly having to get up and change discs. You know, I could just leave. What was it? Bobby loaned me. I could just leave it in the tray. Do a Hades run to wind down before I go to bed or something, and not have to swap discs. So
yeah, it's like it's not even like the more expensive versions of the current consoles having like disk drives. That's not a selling point to me.
Yeah,
it's also bullshit that like all you're doing when you put in the fucking PS5 disc is it's downloading it just as if you were downloading it from the PlayStation Store. I don't even think you get like faster speeds. It's basically just like a DRM unlock for you to have access to fucking download the game. So the disc does nothing.
Sometimes, you know, depending on the internet connection, it could be even downloading it slower from the disc than it would be your internet connection these days.
Yeah. But yeah, so this was the 1993 version of the Three Musketeers. We have our director who is Stephen Herek, who was a name I didn't recognize off the rip, but did you ever go back and look at his directorial efforts in like the late 80s and early 90s?
I did.
He directed Bill and Ted, dude. I had no idea this was the same dude. I love Bill and Ted.
Completely different movie.
Completely different movie, yeah. He also directed Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Yep.
And he directed the fucking Mighty Ducks. So what's so funny is like this guy directed the Three Musketeers, which was like your movie you had constantly on as a kid. Two of the movies that I had constantly on as a little kid were the Mighty Ducks and The Sandlot, were two that I just watched like fucking religiously.
Yeah, I watched the Mighty Ducks a fuck ton.
The Mighty Ducks was so good, and I watched the ever-loving shit out of it. Never in a million years would I've expected the same guy that directed Bill and Ted directed the fucking Mighty Ducks and the Three Musketeers.
Did you pay attention to what year all of his shit's come out? He was a busy man.
Yeah, they're back like every year. He has a movie every year.
He's got a TV movie the same year as Bill and Ted. He had two movies he directed come out in 1989. And then he's got 91, 92, 93. Then he finally took a year off. And he's got 95, 96, 98, 99. Like, my God, dude.
Yeah, take a break. It's also weird. Okay, so Mr. Holland's Opus is a movie I haven't seen, but I'm familiar with. I remember it being a thing. And then he directed 101 Dalmatians.
Yep.
Which... Did the 101 Dalmatians movie like flop? Because he seemed to have like a decent little run, and then he just stopped making like high tier movies. He just started making direct to DVD style movies.
Pretty sure everybody hates that movie.
I have no attachment to it either way, because I just never wanted to watch it as a little kid for some reason. It was just one of those adaptations that just I didn't care.
The most memorable thing is Glenn Close.
Yeah.
Glenn Close, as you could imagine, was fucking legendary as Cruella de Vil.
It's just weird to me. You look back at the guy, and he made the Mighty Ducks and Bill and Ted. Like Bill and Ted alone, you know, do you think you'd think he'd have like more longevity? Maybe he just stopped wanting to like. Maybe he just wore himself out because, like you said, he'd fucking directed like 10 movies over the course of 8 years. It's like, fuck, I don't want to fucking do that anymore. I'll just live off of Mighty Duck and Bill and Ted royalties throughout the years, I guess.
Did you see he directed the Young MacGyver TV movie, and then when they rebooted the series, he directed, it says 11 episodes.
Dude loves his MacGyver.
Of the series. He loves his MacGyver.
Loves his MacGyver. That's fair, you know. Hey, if he liked it and he got to go make it, you know.
And he got a paycheck for it.
Yeah, there you go. Dude, I'm just now realizing the MacGyver TV show lasted more than a season. I thought that shit was going to get immediately canceled like everything does.
It ran for far too long. Far too long.
I wonder what's going to happen this week. Is MacGyver going to MacGyver his way out of a MacGyver situation? I don't know. We'll find out.
Now, hey, being born in '85, I watched the fuck out of the original MacGyver. All right, you, sir.
Hey, I'm just saying it's the same fucking shit every week, and I like it too because my dad was a huge MacGyver fan of the original show, so I watched a fair amount. And I don't know what it is about watching a dude with like a Swiss Army knife and bubblegum like work his way out of a nuclear bomb, but it's entertaining. So they made like 1,000 episodes off that show. So
I'm gonna do a quick plug for shocking Mythbusters. Okay, go if you have HBO, then you have Mythbusters because everything Discovery Plus got folded into HBO and now it's Max. So go to Max and find Mythbusters as a MacGyver special. And they initially even start out talking about how all this shit that they do, especially on Mythbusters, is basically completely inspired by all the shit MacGyver could do, like the way his train of thought and the way he went about his process and things.
Yeah.
And in the MacGyver special, Tori and Grant make what's essentially an obstacle course for Jamie and Adam. And they're all things that MacGyver did throughout the run of the series, but everything's tucked away like they've been imprisoned in a compound and they have to escape the compound. And they take some of the same things that MacGyver did, but do the same things differently and still beat the game. It's crazy. Really cool to watch them work. And every scenario, every piece of equipment they were given was something from MacGyver, and they had to MacGyver their way out of the situation they're in, and they did it.
It's pretty cool.
It was really neat. They had no idea what they were supposed to do. They were tied up, they were blindfolded, they got out of that situation, and they just went through from one scenario to the next till they escape. And they do escape, spoiler alert.
God damn it, Ron. I don't have a reason to watch it, man.
But there's moments when they're just like, who knew you could do that? As they're watching like Adam do this thing. And they're like, why does it look like he's done this before?
I've also just been browsing through his IMDb page, and he directed an episode of the Rush Hour TV show, which I still question.
Question.
Why does that show exist?
I don't know why any of them exist past the first one.
It's so funny. Like, do you remember it was between like 2015 and like 2018? They were so fucking down bad for TV shows. Every single movie that had any inkling of success from like the late 90s and early aughts was converted into a fucking ill-advised TV show that was fucking terrible. And they made it, and it was immediately canceled.
Yeah.
It's like...
But they love their reboots. Their reboots hang around forever, dude. SWAT and Hawaii Five-0 and the MacGyver series.
Yeah.
Like, they hang around forever.
They really do. It's bizarre. So let's continue on. The writers, shockingly, co-credited Alexander Dumas. Who would have figured?
I know that guy.
Crazy. Yeah. The co-writer who is still alive.
As far as we know.
As far as we know, David Lowery.
As long as he didn't take all of his Musketeer earnings to go visit the Titanic.
Oh, God. I feel like...
I can't help it.
I feel like I should feel bad making jokes about that, and then I don't. And then I'm just like, huh, then I just move on with my day. Have you looked at the screenplay career of this guy? This guy also has just a fucking bonkers resume of writing credits.
And when they got together, it was murder. Fucking heart to heart, man.
So this guy wrote the 93 Three Musketeers, right?
Yeah.
His first credit on IMDb is for the screenplay for the Star Trek V The Final Frontier video game. That's pretty lit. There you go. Then he wrote Passenger 57, which is a Wesley Snipes action movie I have probably seen, because my dad is the type, he fucking loved every Wesley Snipes / Steven Seagal / Jean-Claude Van Damme movie from the 80s and 90s.
I did too.
We watched them constantly.
And then it turned out most of them were assholes, but yes, yeah. I watched... I was Joe, right? Watching the Steven Seagal movies at night. So Bonnie, he won't disturb Bonnie. He wears his headphones.
Good soul.
She falls out of the bed.
I love that fucking
Oh,
show.
it's so good. But no, I mean, there was a time when, those were good movies.
Yeah. Also, this guy wrote Tom and Huck, another adaptation from 16 and 1700s novelizations from the adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. So he's got a shtick, you know. Wonder if he also wrote Barbie as the Princess and the Pauper.
Right.
That was a Mark Twain joint. Yeah. The 90s had a weird obsession with these classic movies and these like classic fucking novels just being turned into something that is completely like the opposite of like what the stories actually were. Like even I think I watched that Tom and Huck movie and it is like not even recognizable as like a Tom Sawyer and Adventures of Huck Finn thing. And it's just like, why? What IP are you capitalizing on by having Tom and Huck as your character? Like, man, those kids in the 90s, they fucking love their Tom Sawyer, man. They love it. They can't get enough of Huck Finn.
Oh, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, JTT.
Yeah, the 90s golden boy couldn't even save it.
Huh.
Crazy. Yeah. And then that guy, after Tom and Huck, didn't write for 13 years. So that's kind of crazy. Then he came back with
one of the co-writers on that is Stephen Summers.
On Tom and Huck?
Yes.
No shit. I'm going back through and checking it out. Whoa. That's crazy. I didn't realize he had worked on that.
I saw
Stephen
that.
Summers still managed to have a career after Tom and Huck. Good for him.
I saw that and I was like, Stephen Summers who? It's not the Stephen Summers, and clicked on it. And the first thing I see is The Mummy. I was like, no, what? Anyway.
Just really bizarre. And I also remember Lakeview Terrace existing, and I remember the trailers for it, but I never saw it. You remember Lakeview Terrace? Do you remember the trailers for that?
I know the name. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so this is like, I think it was Samuel L. Jackson. He plays like a cop who is harassing this family that moves in next door to him.
Oh,
really weird.
There's a is that the same movie I'm thinking of? When did that come out?
2008.
Okay, yeah, I know them. I never saw it, but I know what it is.
It was like the most advertised movie of fucking all time. There were just trailers for it going on all of the time around the clock.
Yeah, because at that point I was working at the movie theater, and I remember just trailer after trailer after trailer, and then I remember running it. And I just remember like watching bits and pieces of it here and there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But yeah.
You want to jump into the cast? Because the cast, I feel like
there's no need to jump into the cast. Nobody survived this movie. This movie destroyed all their careers. None of these people were ever heard from again.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. They went on.
It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, they didn't even make it to Tom and Huck, man. It was
I know.
Unfortunate. Really, really unfortunate. Yeah, I feel like I've been talking and just fucking babbling for a long time. So why don't you write us to the cast, Ron?
Dude, this cast. So we've got Charlie Sheen as Aramis. This is pre-Tiger Blood Charlie Sheen, as far as we knew.
I love that he is the most like low-key character in the movie. He's very chill. I love that.
This is pre-Hot Shots, right? It's like a couple years before Hot Shots. Was Hot Shots? I can just click on his name and see. Hot Shots Part 2 was 93, so no. That means Part 1 was like late 80s.
I think so.
Oh my God, there's so much to scroll through on his IMDb. Major League was 89. I feel like that's the one that put him on the map, isn't it? Hot Shots was 91. So he did Hot Shots, this, and Part 2. All in the span of just a few years. Yeah. Charlie Sheen, man. Remember when he was good?
It's unfortunate how much he became a meme.
Yeah.
Because, like, Charlie Sheen was genuinely... I mean, he was never like Gary Oldman or anything, but I think he was very charismatic for his time. I think he had
especially
great
as
timing.
Aramis, right?
Yeah, like
womanizing ex-preacher. Like, come on, he's so good.
I love the kind of like balance between him like clearly being religious,
yeah,
but just not religious enough to like follow the like celibacy and stuff that can sometimes like be intertwined with it.
And just because that's how they introduce him, right? As adultery. And when he sees like, okay, we need to pray for our sins, he busts through the door. Oh, God's often busy, and then he gets up and runs out the window.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I just
stuff like
love
that. And then you get to that big fight, and after killing people, he's going around giving all the dead bodies their last rites because he actually believes in his religion. It just doesn't always show.
Yeah, dude, he's really serious about like the idea like of the afterlife, and like making sure he pays his respects to these people and that they have like their last rites, delivered and everything. But he doesn't follow it down to like the nitty gritty detail of like having to follow all of like the rules, that people get like obsessed with. I think he has a cool character, like trait to him with that, because typically when you have a religious character in a movie, especially from like back in the day, they were devout to a T and, like very, very one note. And I think him having like a little bit more like gray to his character is cool. And it is funny. Like you go back and watching it, it's just like you associate Charlie Sheen with being fucking batshit insane.
Funny. That's what I associate with him today.
Yeah.
This movie is very cynical about religion in general.
And I love that about it, because that was
for 1993. That wasn't necessarily in vogue yet. Like, you had movies like that, but this is Disney. This is a PG Disney movie for kids that is showing like the dirty side of religion.
Yeah, it's one of the things I actually like a lot about the animated Hunchback of Notre Dame movie.
Yeah,
is they're also very anti-religion, which I appreciate, because they were monsters back then.
Absolutely.
Like, this shit isn't fiction. Like, these people were basically able to like use their power to become like monarchs,
and oftentimes more powerful than the monarch.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, fucking Tim Curry in this movie has a Demon Souls level as his basement.
Yeah,
as a torture device. As a torture chamber thing.
I went with I went with King Leoric from Diablo, but yeah, same difference.
Yeah, it's fucking bonkers. He's got the zombie mountain before Game of Thrones existed down there, man. It's terrifying.
Dude, Kiefer Sutherland. This is one of my all-time favorite performances from Kiefer Sutherland as Athos.
So I don't think I've ever told you this. I'm a giant Kiefer Sutherland simp.
I believe it has come up because you used to talk about 24.
Yeah, dude, I was fucking obsessed.
It might have been
24.
the old podcast, but it has come up.
Yeah, I have seen every episode of 24. I fucking loved that show. Yes, I understand it's really stupid. Like how every terrible thing that is a cliffhanger happens at 58 minutes into every single hour on the hour. It is incredibly stupid. But you tell me it is Kiefer Sutherland basically being the Punisher and like punching terrorists in the face. It's like, I can get down with that. So
what was it he got in trouble for? I always got the feeling he was like a genuinely good dude, and he got in trouble. Is he the one that they had a warrant out for his arrest? Because I know they had a warrant out for his arrest, but I don't remember what it was for. It was like another DUI or something. He literally went down and turned himself in, and they actually had a contract. They would literally drive him from the jail to the set of 24. He would work on 24, and at the end of shooting, when they wrapped, they would drive him back to the jail.
You get him on the set for 1 hour. Yeah,
and he would. I see what you did there. But yeah, like he heard that they wanted to arrest him, and he just like walked through the door and was like, "All right, here I am." Like, I remember that distinctly because I always thought he came across as a genuinely good dude, and then I heard that. I remember reading about all that. I'm like, I think he is genuinely a good dude. I mean, his dad is Donald Sutherland. Come on.
Right.
I want Donald Sutherland to be my grandpa. Come on.
Hell yeah, dude.
He'd be so fun as a grandpa.
Yeah. Man.
Robin himself, Chris O'Donnell, as D'Artagnan.
Oh, I was just going to say real quick about Kiefer Sutherland.
Nope, we moved on.
Oh, okay, my bad. Continue. So I went back and looked. He was like either 26 or 27 at the time of them filming this, and I just think it's so funny. You go back and watch Kiefer Sutherland movies and stuff from when he was in his like 20s and 30s.
He looks like he's 40.
The dude just always had the personality and gruffness of like a 55-year-old, and I just love that about him.
I swear to God, my entire life, Kiefer Sutherland has been in his 40s.
Yeah.
My entire life. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, he's always been a good-looking dude. He's a great actor. But there's something about him. He's just been in his 40s my entire life.
He's like, you go back and you look at like a Clint Eastwood movie when he was in his like 20s, and he was always just a 75-year-old cranky guy. And that was just his personality. That is like Kiefer Sutherland. He was just always like a gruff, I'm too old for this shit, even when he wasn't too old for this shit. It's really funny. But yeah, continue.
Chris O'Donnell is D'Artagnan. Oh my God, Jeff.
What are your thoughts on Chris O'Donnell in this movie?
I think he's very Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah, I think he's very, very Chris O'Donnell. I think he's used well. I just think it's really, really funny how, in retrospect, how much damage the Batman movies like did to Chris O'Donnell's career.
They ruined him.
They ruined his, like, they straight, like, Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker, like, level ruined his fucking career. Like,
I'm going to admit I have bias in this movie because I can't think of Chris O'Donnell without thinking of D'Artagnan. So
see, I think of Batman. I think of the Batman movies.
When I think of him in this movie. So even though he's being very Chris O'Donnell in this movie, it works for me because this is how I remember Chris O'Donnell to begin with. But anytime he's in anything else, I'm just like, oh, hey, Chris O'Donnell.
I think it is a good selection because his natural charisma and that kind of like
he has
it's hard to
he has this little half smile that he does that is perfect for this character.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about? Anytime he's in trouble like that, trying to get out of being in trouble with your mom smile that he does throughout this movie.
It works because he had like his character that he always is in all of his movies most like fits D'Artagnan as a character and his role with the other Musketeers.
Yes.
So while I don't think Chris O'Donnell is particularly like good in this movie as an actor, I think they just picked the right guy.
There was no one else they could cast for this role the way he's written.
Yeah, he works. Even it's weird. It's like even though he's not acting that well, he's acting perfectly for what the story like needs him to be.
Exactly.
But yeah, I just watch anything else and I just see Chris O'Donnell being Chris O'Donnell and also Chris O'Donnell as Robin, and it just like I can never like take him seriously, and it's a shame because it's not his fault. Like, of course the guy signed up to be Robin.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
They were on the heels of the Burton Batman movies.
Yeah,
they were fucking huge. That was like the role of a lifetime. I mean, yeah, it's ill-advised they picked a 45-year-old to play the teenager kid. You know, he went to like the same high school as the 45-year-old adult teenagers in the Spider-Man movies from Sam Raimi. But
he would have been insane to turn that down.
Yeah, it's
insane.
Like people. It's like people give like Hayden Christensen shit for being Anakin. It's like, oh, you were gonna turn down Star Wars?
Yeah, exactly.
What? It's like it's not their fault that the movies they were in were shit and that their writing was atrocious. It's not their fault.
That's a lot of the problem that I have. The actor's job is not the same as the writers. They're not writing as they're filming.
Yeah.
They are doing what they are given.
They can only do so much. You know, like Gary Oldman wouldn't have been able to save those fucking Schumacher Batman movies.
No, John Hurt couldn't have saved them.
Think of who else is in that first Schumacher Batman movie. Nicole Kidman, Val Kilmer, Tommy Lee Jones, Jim Carrey. All people who are good actors.
And for the most part, were white hot in that time period.
Yeah, and they just couldn't fucking save it because the writing and the directing was atrocious. And that is none of their faults. And it's just a shame that, like, poor Chris O'Donnell got Hayden Christensen and, like, shoehorned into being thought of and remembered as that character, even though it wasn't his fault. It just kind of sucks.
The happy ending for Chris O'Donnell is he ended up on one of those, like, CSI type shows. And think of whatever you will about those shows. As an actor, a steady paycheck on a recurring TV show gig that lasts multiple seasons, that will probably go on long enough to be syndicated.
Oh, yeah, they're set.
That's the dream.
I think he was in one of the NCIS spinoffs.
Yeah, but
I might be mistaken.
Well, it's all the same to me. But
it's all this, just a combination of letters.
That may not seem like a happy ending if you're not a fan of those shows, but what he got on that deal is the dream for any actor.
I am happy for him.
So he made it, but Yeah, he would be insane to turn down Robin, and
Yeah.
it's a shame it ruined his career because, yeah, he's very Chris O'Donnell, but I don't have a problem with him the way I do Ben Affleck and Matt Damon because he has a charisma to him that they don't have. So,
Yeah, it's just it's unfortunate how much one role can devastate your career even when it's not your fault.
What you said about him being D'Artagnan in this movie is how I feel about Matt Damon as Mark Watney in The Martian.
Yeah, I can see that. He's just like perfect for that character.
That role is Matt Damon. You cannot cast anyone else for that role. And I fucking love him in that movie, and I don't even care for Matt Damon. So,
man, I love that. I love that movie, and I love that book. That movie's
so good.
We got to get that movie on the show. Like
I've had it in my back pocket for far too long.
I have as well. I just I've
been waiting ever since I found out they're gonna do Hail Mary. I've been keeping it in my back pocket for when we get closer to Hail Mary.
Yeah.
But dude, Oliver Platt, it is criminal how few of his stuff I have seen.
He's so fucking good in this movie.
I fucking love Oliver Platt and everything that I have seen him in, and he is my favorite character in this movie, Porthos the pirate.
Yeah, he's fucking awesome. Dude, the amount of amazing one-liners he has in this movie is mental, dude.
He's about 35% of the way to Jack Sparrow in this movie, 40% of the way. Yeah, it's so good, and he's so full of bullshit. I love him so much. This sash was given to me by the Queen of America. Like, what?
Oh, don't be so stupid. Of course we intend to resist. Just give us a moment.
The Tsarina of Mexico? Is that who gave him the axe? Something like that? Like, what are you talking about, Porthos? Yeah, and he challenges anyone who challenges him. Oh my God, he's so good. And I want to stop right here. Charlie Sheen, Kiefer Sutherland, Chris O'Donnell, Oliver Platt. Who knew the four of them would mesh and work together the way they do on screen?
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. It is.
There's a chemistry between all four of these actors that they work so well together.
Yeah, on paper, it sounds like a hodgepodge that should not work. But they totally... I wonder if this was an instance where, like, they had the actors become friends ahead of time.
Maybe.
Just to make it a little bit more, like, genuine, because their friendships, like, feel so lived in.
Yeah.
With when they talk about each other and the way that they conversate. And
the way they interact and the way they give each other shit.
And they sound like old college buddies.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say high school, but yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Is what they sound like.
It's really, really cool how well they work together.
And then Chris O'Donnell as the new guy in the group, but it still works. Like all of them still mesh. Like D'Artagnan's very much the new guy to the group, but the chemistry and charisma he has meshes very well with Charlie Sheen, Kiefer Sutherland, Oliver Platt. What a fucking team! Yeah, who knew?
It's awesome. And some of them playing like like you have some of them playing like a little bit counterintuitive to what they typically are cast as, like with Charlie Sheen. Like Charlie Sheen is the most reserved one of them.
Yeah.
Which if you were to like ask somebody like which person was like which character was Charlie Sheen playing if they hadn't seen the movie, with hindsight, they would probably like put him with like Porthos, like that level of like goofiness,
Right.
But no. It's cool that they're playing the character like I think Chris O'Donnell and Kiefer Sutherland are like perfectly picked for like what they're synonymously known for typically with their roles, but like with Oliver Platt being yes, he's funny, but he's also a badass in this.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
He's full of shit, but he can clearly live up to whatever he claims, right? Like it's insane.
I love all the way he reacts to all of his like crazy fucking MacGyver gadgets that he uses to kill people with.
God, I love my job. Oh, it's so
awesome.
good. Dude, Tim Curry as Cardinal Richelieu.
Maybe one of my just favorite people of all time is Tim Curry, dude, and he is at some of his most Tim Curryness in this as well, and I fucking love every second of it.
Oddly enough, still dialed back a little bit.
Yeah, it's wonderful,
but it's very, very good. And because we're talking,
no one can play a despicable but likable character the same way that Tim Curry can.
He is so evil, but you can't help but like him because he's Tim Curry.
He's just so fucking charismatic. Like,
yeah,
the work he does in this movie, he can convey so much information with just the way he looks at people. Like the way he looks at some of the women around him in the movie is so disgusting and he conveys so much of his character's just grossness and the way that he gives people looks. He's fucking
tone
amazing.
of voice alone, a lot of the time.
Everything is like a double entendre as he's speaking because of the way that he is going about his dialogue. It's perfect.
He's got a character quirk that, like, on paper is just like him being kind of a cartoonish, like, mustache twirling villain, but it also kind of works for his character because, like, he always has the last word, even if the person was just killed. He always has to have the last word. One of the first things we see happen is a guy that had been stealing from his carriage to feed his starving family. And after the dude is stabbed and killed, he says one less mouth to feed. Like, it works, like I said, as a cartoon mustache twirling villain, but it's also a character quirk because he does that throughout the whole movie, having the last word. He cannot leave the room.
From me.
Yes.
Yeah,
he always has the last word, and I love it because sometimes it's just him walking up to the camera, saying the line and walking off, but because he's Tim Curry, it fucking works.
He's just one of those one of those characters where he's chewing the fuck out of the scenery, but you just let him go because he's just so fucking magnetic about it. Like, it's just something about Tim Curry. It's like, and he's one of those actors where it's like it didn't matter what the material was. Like, he was bringing his fucking A game, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter what you're in.
Yeah, I fucking love Tim Curry. Is this the first time we've had Tim Curry on the podcast? By the way, I think that's a fucking travesty because I adore that man, and we need to have Clue on the show. I fucking love Clue.
Clue's so good.
Clue is fucking genius.
We should have done a pairing with that and Knives Out is what we should have done.
Yeah, we should have. I love Clue so much. It's so good.
I'm going to skip ahead to Michael Wincott because he was Rochefort, which is the guy that does all the dirty work for Cardinal Richelieu. Yeah. And, I mean, Richelieu is terrifying as a character in one way, right? He's a tyrant and everything. There's nothing that Rochefort won't do, though. And he does it just for the sake of enjoying what he does. So he's terrifying in a completely different way because he's ruthless and loves it.
Yeah, he's just absolutely like relentless and brutal in the way that, like,
because he's the Cardinal's right-hand man, he can get away with anything he wants.
Yeah, so, he's a really cool character.
And if you don't know Michael Wincott, you know his voice.
Which is one of the most chilling voices in Hollywood.
It makes him great as a villain. I told you before, right, that he has a really small bit role in The Count of Monte Cristo because he's at the prison where he's imprisoned and tortured. He's one of the wardens of the prison.
That's the one with Guy Pearce, right?
Yeah.
I fucking love that movie a lot. That's one of the movies. I think I've talked about this before in the podcast. My grandma, they will pick one movie like Brendan Fraser, The Mummy, and that was one of them. And she just has the movie playing for like 2 weekends back to back nonstop on a loop.
Yeah.
The Count of Monte Cristo was one of those to where when I was at my grandma's house, I would just sit there and watch The Count of Monte Cristo like on a loop and not even fucking complain because that movie's awesome.
That movie's so good. I saw that movie in theaters. It was great.
Yeah,
it was not with my French class, actually. It was the first time. I believe that was the first time I went to the Tulsa Cinemark, and I ended up working there.
Crazy.
So you got them. Rebecca De Mornay is Milady, very important character, also a terrifying character in her own right.
She's actually one of my favorite performances in the movie, I think.
I guess she's less terrifying and more chilling. Everything that she says and does is very chilling.
Upon rewatch,
she makes Richelieu back down.
Yeah, she is really good in this movie, and I didn't pick up on just how good that how good she was the first time I watched the movie. It wasn't until the second time revisiting it.
You start out not liking her, not trusting her, and then she's a tragic character by the end of it.
Yeah, she reminds me almost like a George R.R. Martin character.
Pretty much. Like
the depth they have to her more negative qualities in juxtaposition with, like, you know, her redemption a little bit at the end, where she tells them the assassination plot and stuff at the end, you know?
Right.
And I think she's a really good character. And just a really good performance.
She's a tragic character that really kind of can't help herself, but in that moment, and then her moment of redemption, like you're talking about, is when she basically proves that she was actually in love with him. because that's the whole reason she's doing it.
Which Martin character she most reminds me of is Jaime Lannister, and how like
I can see that. They're even
down,
blonde.
It's where it's like deep down, they're a good person, but they're trying to like persuade themselves that they're not. You know, they're trying to put on this face that they are this evil person to kind of like blend in with the evil around them, and when they're really not at their core. And I think she has a lot of depth to her, and she doesn't have very many scenes, and I think Rebecca De Mornay does.
But every
work.
time,
also, I totally did not realize. Did you realize she is the mom in Jessica Jones? I did not recognize that. Yeah. Do you remember in the Jessica Jones show, the adopted mom of Jessica and the mom of Trish, Jessica's best friend? That is her, and I had no clue that was her.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Fans of Burn Notice will know Gabrielle Anwar, I believe it's pronounced. She is Fiona. What's the main guy's name?
Oh God!
In Burn Notice, I can't think of his name. It's got the show on Hulu. He's in Sicario.
God, I'm blanking.
Damn it! God damn it, Jeff.
You continue. I'll find it.
Fiona is often seen with a rocket launcher blowing shit up. She's Bruce Campbell is the wisecracking guy.
Jeffrey Donovan.
Jeffrey Donovan is like the debonair suave guy, and Fiona Gabrielle Anwar is basically the badass. That's the trio in that show. So she is a very different role in this movie. She is the queen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna skip ahead to Hugh O'Connor, who's King Louis. He's done probably at this point more writing and directing than he's been doing acting. I don't think he made it big over here, but I think he's like in the UK or something.
I made Aurora laugh because as we were talking about him in the movie, I said he had a huge Pinocchio from Shrek energy, which he totally does.
Jeff, one of the main points I wanted to talk about today is Paul McGann as Gerard.
Now, he's pulling double duty as the right-hand man to Richelieu's right-hand man, Rochefort, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, he's playing, for whatever reason, they loved Paul McGann so much, they let him play two characters for no reason. It's kind of great.
But D'Artagnan! I want him yelling run at the end of the movie on a hotkey next time I play Dark Souls or Bloodborne.
Love that. Love that. He should be just excruciating, but because it's fucking Paul McGann, he makes all those scenes like really charming and work. It should work.
Yeah, he knows his craft. He knows how to make it work, and he is legitimately funny. Yeah,
he's great.
And the times he is excruciating, he was intended to be. So yeah. D'Artagnan, don't lose your head. Yeah.
Love him.
Is there any other cast members you want to talk? I think that about wraps up.
Yeah, that about wraps it up.
The real shit-tastic cast, am I right? This cast is so bad. It's amazing. The movie is so good.
We probably should just end the show now. We have nothing else to talk about.
I know, dude. What? As a kid, I was just like, oh, I know some of these people. As an adult, looking at this movie, I'm like, my God. Do you know what this movie would cost to make now?
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. It's for 1993. This is pretty goddamn like.
This is one of those happy things, like just the stars aligned for this movie to come together. And while there are other good Three Musketeer movies, this movie is always my favorite characterization of these three characters. Their quirks, their good things, their bad things, their pros and cons about the characters. This is my favorite style of these characters.
Yeah,
how serious Athos can be, Eremos being restrained, believing in what he believes, but king and country is first, and he'll do what he has to do and ask forgiveness later. Porthos being full of shit and loving his job, and no one loves being Porthos more than Porthos.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. Versus Michael Wincott and Tim Curry. I mean, do I need to say anything else about this movie?
No, I think it kind of speaks for itself.
Oh my God. Porthos. I think one of my favorite fight scenes is on the ship stopping Milady from delivering the treaty.
Yeah.
Where they've stacked up all the dead men on on the boat, and like just everything to do with Porthos. And the one guy was just like, permission to come aboard, and he's like, permission granted.
He's just such a colossal asshole.
I love it.
It's awesome.
Permission granted. Oh my god. And then
when he's digging for booze in the carriage chase,
yes,
it's pretty fucking good.
I had 2 of those pulled up. It was when he first pops in. Champagne? We're in the middle of a chase, Porthos. You're right. Something red.
Something red.
And then when he pops back up, for a chase, the Cardinal recommends his excellent 24 Cabernet. And then Athos is like, here, you take the reins. And he's just sitting there drinking while D'Artagnan, the new guy, is trying to get them out of this mess.
Yeah.
They just don't give a shit. I love it. They have no worries.
There's no worries in the world because they've just been through the ringer so many times that it is just a day that ends in Y. They could not care less that they could die at any moment.
I think that's one of my favorite one of the reasons why this is one of my favorite characterizations of them, because they seem like they have been musketeers forever, and that they've seen so much like war and conflict and battle. They have so much time on the battlefield that like most of these fights are just a game to them. You know, like it's only in certain moments where it kind of weighs on them, like in the bar scene where D'Artagnan is talking about Athos, like why is he off by himself? And I think it's Aramis that says, he takes his drinking very seriously. Yeah, because he just has so much baggage. That is one of my favorite ways I think I've ever gotten a character's backstory. Him telling it in third person to the new guy, like he's talking about someone else. And you have, if this is your first time watching, you have the inkling that he's talking about himself, because it seems very personal to him. And then it is confirmed when he runs into Milady and, he arrests her, and then they have all their scenes together. And there's like a weird satisfying, but simultaneously unsatisfying by design closure to that story. Because she claimed to have killed him. He thought she was dead. And then it ends with her throwing herself off of a cliff. Like, and that is closure. Like, he is honor bound enough that he condemned her to die the first time. That's when she disappeared. And that's that's the mistake he talks about making.
It's really
that line that he has, like, the Count realized then that his betrayal was greater than hers ever could have been, or something.
Yeah.
And then her moment of redemption is, not only did she actually love him, but she still does. And that's why she tells him of Cardinal Richelieu's plot. And then in a very empowering move, takes her own life instead of letting them take her head.
Yeah.
But
to go on her own terms,
Exactly.
So, and at the same time, basically accept her role in all of the terrible shit she had done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. Is that in the book at all? Like, is her character background and like the Count and Countess stuff with him, is that from the book, or is that made up for the movie? Because I was curious about that.
Zero idea. I have no idea about that.
I almost wonder if that's from the books, because that is like a very, very specific level of romantic tragedy.
I feel like that's probably really for the movie, but I don't know that.
It's just one of those things where it makes me think of, like, there's a lot of that level, like, romantic tragedy to that era of, novels.
Yeah.
The Alexander Dumas era. Just all over the place. I could be either way. I'm just curious, because it's a great background, and I love how this movie delivers exposition. I think it's very, very clever, and it's never on the nose. It always feels organic. And a lot of the time when you have a movie like this, where it is a Disney adaptation of the Three Musketeers, usually it is so shoehorned in when they're getting character background and exposition across, it's painful. And this movie does a great job of making it always feel like
it's literally two cameras just locked on their faces and him just telling a story to the new kid. And you're on the edge of your seat listening to him tell the story, because the way it's written is so good, but the way Kiefer Sutherland like delivers those lines, the way he tells that story, and just the sound of his voice and the tone he's using. That scene is so good, and then it is such a dark moment, and then Porthos drunkenly crashes through their table to bring the levity to bring it back. Like that is a well-crafted scene on all ends. And then ooh, may I have this dance? And then he just punches him and laughs to himself as he takes another drink.
And Kiefer Sutherland could not have been like casted better, because that gruffness and that like air of being much older than he actually was. He was 26 or 27 at this time. And the way he communicates that story, he sounds like someone who's middle-aged looking back with regret.
Right.
You know, there's so much like gravitas to that conversation and the way he talks about it. He's so good.
You have moments like that, and all the moments with Milady, and then you have moments like, only a fool will try to arrest us twice in one day. You're under arrest, a fool.
Yeah, they I think they balance the humor with the sincerity of some of their like more tragic backgrounds really well. And also just surrounding this is, like we talked about earlier, the skepticism of the church.
Yes.
That was really ahead of its time. Like this movie has like a lot of depth to it, and I feel like it's one of those that people that are revisiting it over time, I think, will like check it out and realize like there's a lot more to it than people realize. And I think a lot of it is like with hindsight.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people probably went and saw this and didn't take it seriously at all, and just saw it as like a waste of time because of how goofy it was. And but there's a lot of like nuance to it. There's like a surprising amount of nuance and like character to it.
I'm surprised that this movie was under the Disney flag. Yeah, like they had so many other studios, like it was Miramax where they did all the rated R movies and stuff.
Yeah.
Buena Vista is their distribution company. This is distributed by Buena Vista, which means distributed by Disney. But the first thing that pops up, I believe, on screen is Walt Disney Presents. And it's not the Disney Castle or anything. It's just literally written out, Walt Disney Presents, in like Times New Roman. And it just seems like they would have done a movie like this under a different studio. I find it interesting that this, and they're smack in the middle of like a lot of the golden age of their animated musicals right now. We've already at this point had what, a Lion King and Aladdin, probably, and
it's nuts.
The Three Musketeers live action under the same flag, the same banner. No pun intended, since this is all kings and banners and flags. But
it's crazy.
Jumping ahead, there's a moment that is in a ton of movies. It's pretty much a trope at this point. It's one of my favorite ways I think I've ever seen it done in a movie. And that is the rallying cry when they're rallying all the other musketeers. So like the movie opens with them burning their tunics and throwing down their swords as they've all basically been fired, and they're all going to be put on the front lines in the oncoming war with England. And later in the movie, once they know what Cardinal Richelieu's doing, they've got enough evidence to go against him. They start riding around. Here's the thing. This is all planned, right? Because they know where to go. They're going around different villages, different settlements, firing a crossbow that has a note punched through it that says all for one and one for all. And there's just this montage of people opening up wine casks, and there's a bunch of swords and tunics in there, and pulling out floorboards and pulling out tunics and swords. Like, they had one that they burned and threw down, but none of the musketeers quit. These three kept wearing the tunics and were out in the open. None of the musketeers quit. All of them are still musketeers. They're just not doing it in the open.
Yeah.
And that montage, that rallying cry, there's something about the way that is shot, and there's no big speech. No one's standing on top of something giving a big speech rallying everybody. There's no anything. It's just set to the score of the movie, them riding by firing a crossbow, and then cutting to people pulling out swords. And one of them opens up floorboard and just like, here's a sword, here's a sword, here's a sword.
He's like John Wick underneath the floorboard. He's got to get his gear out, you know.
Yeah, basically there's something about the rallying cry in this movie. It's done so simply. I guess. They don't dwell on it, but the implications it has are huge because it's not like there's a handful of musketeers that show up when they rally. Like, and they knew exactly where to go to find everybody.
Yep.
You know, so like everyone had a plan for the day the musketeers disappeared or the day that the king's life would be in danger. And once these three have figured it out, what's going on, everybody comes to back them up. It's so great when they all reveal themselves in the crowd. Like a bunch of the crowd runs away and a bunch of them don't, and then all of them step forward and just reveal their tunics. It's so good.
It's a real like fuck yeah moment. You know, you can't help but get into it. I'm also glad that you mentioned the score because I wanted to give credit to Michael Kamen, who is the composer for this movie, because I think the score in this movie is great. This score most reminds me of James Horner. That has like that very, very kind of lighthearted adventure kind of tone to it.
Did you say Michael Kamen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say the score is basically All for Love, which is the song for this movie, the big song for this movie, and he's one of the writing credits on that song as well.
Yeah, it's just like, dude, like the score is just like, it's so like the way that it's paced throughout the action sequences is great. I think it's like really moving when it's supposed to be. I think it's just a great score. And also, have you ever looked at the IMDb page for Michael Kamen?
No.
This is gonna like blow your mind. Okay, give me a second to scroll to the bottom of this fucking list. Okay. Highlander, Lethal Weapon, Adventures in Babysitting, Die Hard, Roadhouse, Lethal Weapon 2, Die Hard 2, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
I like that movie.
The Last Boy Scout, Lethal Weapon 3, Last Action Hero, Three Musketeers, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Mr. Holland's Opus, Event Horizon, Lethal Weapon 4, What Dreams May Come,
Oh
The
my
Iron
God,
Giant,
how does no one know this guy?
Frequency, X-Men, Band of Brothers, and he helped write the X-Men animated theme song. Yes. One of like the most iconic themes of the 90s. Like, this dude's fucking amazing. And like, I had never really been familiar with him. He sadly passed away in 2003.
Oh.
Otherwise, I think he'd still be fucking making awesome shit today.
10
like,
years after this movie.
That was a fucking run of awesomeness. Like, just crazy good.
That list of movies you rattled off, some of them are hated, some of them are beloved. All of them were major players at box office.
Yeah.
Every single one of them were a big deal. Even if some of them are kind of like meme-ish or a joke now, they were a big deal. That is an insane career.
Yeah, over the course of like 15 years, all those movies.
Jesus.
Insane body of work. Like, so consistent too, because you know those movies, like they might, like you said, they might not be all great, but like typically, even if a movie is bad, it's not like the composing is bad. You know, it's the writing and directing and like the potential like acting of it that can be bad.
I never understood the hate for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I always liked that movie.
I don't think I've ever actually seen all of it. I think I've only seen bits and pieces of it.
I haven't seen it in a number of years now, but like, I think I have it on DVD. I might have it on VHS, but I think I even have it on DVD, which means I had to have bought it again later, sometime after it came out. No, I always enjoyed that movie. It's one of the few like Costner movies I like. Costner has to be used just right because he has very little personality.
Costner is exactly like that Chris O'Donnell type person we were talking about, where he is always that same type of character.
Yeah,
like he is just Kevin Costner.
But everybody really hates that movie, and The Last Boy Scout, everybody kind of makes fun of. I like that movie too.
I thought everyone was kind of like chill with The Last Boy Scout.
I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah,
I know Last Action Hero everyone hates.
I do not like that movie. It's no one's fault. It's the story itself I don't care for. I think it's well done. I think it's well acted. I just don't necessarily care for the story.
Yeah.
It's one of those that they literally jump out of the movie screen and come into the real world, and I'm like, I'm done. I don't need breaking the fourth wall literally. Like,
you don't want your Deadpool meta comedy in your action movie.
Yeah, pretty much. So
yeah, I think I've kind of covered everything I wanted to talk about. But this was like such an iconic part of your childhood. I just want to give you the floor. Like, is there any aspects of the movie that you wanted to touch on before we kind of close out the episode?
I think not enough people have seen this movie. I think it's really underrated for
I agree.
its fight scenes, its choreography. It's an action adventure in the purest sense, right? It's got the same. It's not the same level of tone, but it's worked out the same way, balanced out the same way as like Indiana Jones movies are, or
The Princess Bride.
The Princess Bride
shares a lot of similar aspects with this.
That had to have been their blueprint for this, because that came out first, right?
Yes, The Princess Bride was in like the mid to late 80s.
That's what I was thinking. So shortly after that, we get this movie. So that can't be a coincidence.
No.
I am still convinced if you watch this movie and watch the way it's written, a lot of the way it's filmed, a lot of the way it's acted, a lot of stuff with Porthos, that you don't get Pirates of the Caribbean, at least not the version we know, without this movie.
Yeah. It was like the prototype, because it was also Disney.
Yeah, I feel like this is I feel like this is Demon Souls to Dark Souls, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the
Three Musketeers
first run.
Walked so that the Pirates of the Caribbean could run.
Exactly. And that's also the way I feel, incidentally, about the Rocketeer and Iron Man.
I agreed. Yeah.
Iron Man took a lot, especially when he's building the suit and like, you know, he turns on the boots to 10% thrust and crashes. Like there's an exact scene like that in the Rocketeer.
I gotta watch Iron Man again. The first Iron Man is just such a perfect fucking movie.
Okay, do this. If you need to span it out over a weekend or whatever, I encourage everyone to, like, on a Saturday, watch The Rocketeer and then go watch Iron Man on, like, Sunday.
That's a solid fucking weekend, man.
And
I can get down with that.
Tell me that you get that movie without The Rocketeer. You know, do the same thing with this one. Three Musketeers, and then, oh my God, not the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
What a travesty.
Oh, I have to watch an excellent fucking movie before Johnny Depp totally lost his shit? With Jeffrey Rush as a villain?
Before we knew that Johnny Depp had lost his shit, I feel like there might have always been a little bit of craziness in that dude.
I feel like there's a lot of Rochefort, Michael Cott's Rochefort in Barbossa. Barbossa?
Yeah, I could see.
That's his name, right?
Like,
Jeffrey Rush?
He's like a blend between Richelieu and Rochefort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think one of my favorite last lines from a villain ever is Michael Wincott in this. One thing is for certain, you are no musketeer. Immediately stabbed in chest. I may have been mistaken, and then just falls backwards and dies.
Like that's something I say as I'm falling off a cliff in Dark Souls. Like that's just fucking perfection.
Oh, it's so good.
So it's so good.
And that line only works if Michael Wincott delivers it with that voice and the way he characterizes Rochefort.
Yeah. Man. Everyone in this movie is just fucking awesome. Like they all are. It's so good. They're so like it's one of those things where at the very, very core, at the baseline, the movie is like charming and pure to where I don't understand how it gets like such a low Rotten Tomatoes score. Because like to me, this is one of those like 75% or like 80% movies where yes, it's not perfect. It's not like escalating the fucking very definition of cinema like some of these critics want it to be, but like what could it have done differently to make it better? You know, it's one of those things like what's the course correction, because it's everything that it sought out to be. And I don't understand the kind of like negative reaction people had to it. And I also encourage people that if they did like this, and they might be like Ron and are kind of hesitant to revisit it because so much stuff in the 90s when you revisit it is garbage.
I would even add to that and say if you're hand waving it, but you enjoy the first Pirates, it's about the same tone. I mean, like I said, I think it's the blueprint.
Go check it out. It's good. It's on Disney Plus. Check it out.
I was laughing to myself as you were
waxing
talking there.
Poetic as I tend to do.
Yeah, because I was just remembering Porthos, like, wow, ugly, as he deals with the jailer underground.
As he deals with the fucking zombie mountain.
And then later, where the hell have you been? Dealing with something ugly. He's such a dick.
He's such a dick.
After he saves D'Artagnan, and D'Artagnan's still dangling from the top of the castle from a flag. Come, D'Artagnan, what's saving the king? And then like runs off. Like, no one goes to help him. Nothing. Like he takes out the guy, but he just leaves him literally hanging.
Yeah,
And
he'll figure it out.
yeah, and come D'Artagnan, we're saving the king. He's like so happy to be doing what he's doing.
Yeah,
Oh, it's so good.
yeah, it's awesome.
By the way, the sniper in this movie that is fucking sniping people with a I don't remember what the musket rifles are called, but you know what I'm talking about. You fire it, then you gotta jam the wad in, you gotta jam the ball in, you gotta jam other stuff in it, and you gotta light the striker, and it takes like 10 minutes between shots to fire anything.
Yeah, the Barrett 50 cal used to be real weird.
Those guns are legendary for being inaccurate. They're so bad. Those guns are where we figured out rifling, right? To put a spin on the ball, because the ball is going to spin either way. And what makes it erratic and unpredictable and makes your shots inconsistent is it would roll out of the barrel a different way every time. And the ball was not aerodynamic. That's why bullets are shaped the way they are. Whereas this was literally just a ball.
Just a fucking ball. Just a mini cannonball.
That
was all
guy
it was.
That guy getting headshots all the time from that distance with that rifle, even Richelieu was just like, good shot, or whatever it is he says when he leans forward into the frame.
Yeah. They got dead shot in the 1700s France, man.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah. As a kid, I was just like, oh, look, a guy that's good with a gun. Watching that again as an adult, knowing what kind of weapon he's using, I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, with the regular muskets, they could be 20 feet away from each other,
and
both
miss.
aiming correctly, and both miss several times in a row because of how shitty the technology was.
There's a reason why in dueling, you step forward every time everybody lives. Because...
And it's only like 10 paces, because that might as well be a mile in musket terms.
Yeah,
you know?
And the reason, it's not that people were a bad shot, they were inconsistent because the bullet did something different every time. It's not like you can correct by going down and to the left or something. It's not your sights that are off. The damn bullet is doing whatever it fucking wants to do.
It just ends up being it's a gamble. It's just a roll of the dice, It's just on where the fucking musket lands.
The shot when D'Artagnan interrupts him clearly would have hit the king the way he hit that painting.
Yeah.
Clearly. And it's just like, Jesus, this guy's amazing.
Yeah, dude's crazy.
I bet he was expensive. And I bet he got paid up front, sadly, for Richelieu.
I like how Richelieu saw what he could do, and he was like, pay him double. You know?
Whatever you're paying him, double it.
Yeah, because he valued the man's fucking talents with a 1700s musket sniper.
See, Hollywood, even Richelieu is paying people what they're worth. Get on it.
Yeah, come on, man.
Come on. Wow, we got political there for a second. All right. That means it's time to go. I just closing it out. This movie, man, it's a staple of my childhood, and it remains. And honestly, it's rated PG, but there's a lot of PG stuff that should be PG-13. I think I'm gonna show this to my kids soon, probably. There's nothing in it there's nothing in this that's worse than what's in Endgame. It's
exactly. Yeah, it's like that. I think the most graphic and most adult that it gets is where it shows some blood in the mouth of the mountain zombie as he gets medieval torture device to death.
When he snaps back to consciousness and screams, and Porthos screams and then cuts the rope. That's
awesome.
One of my favorite lines, real quick, also from Porthos, all the bullshit he's been telling the whole movie. And then all he does is drop down, and the two guys are like, Porthos the pirate! Ah! And run and throw themselves overboard. And I told you I'm famous. Why wouldn't you believe me?
He was bullshitting, but he does have a reputation.
He actually is famous. He wasn't lying.
Yeah. He was just adding a little bit of a white lie on how famous.
And the guy's a fucking walking arsenal, like you mentioned earlier, too. It's great.
Yeah. It's awesome.
And this movie's really hold good. This, will you? And then Kiefer Sutherland is just low-key in the background using two swords, killing two guys at once while he's pulling out a fucking mini crossbow, like a handheld crossbow. He's got the bolo earlier.
Yep. Hell yeah.
Oh, man. Anyways, Porthos is my favorite character, if you can't tell.
Yeah, it's a toss-up for me between which one is Kiefer? Is that Athos who is Kiefer Sutherland?
Yes, he is Athos.
I'm such a fucking nerd for Kiefer Sutherland, and I love his character so much.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah, I think my favorite might be him, but Porthos is just so close that they're kind of a toss up. I love them both for very different reasons because like Athos, he just has so much like Athos is one of those characters I'm always like drawn to. He's like the secondary character in an anime, you know, where they have like
the better character, aka
the secondary character, like is it Wolfwood who's in Trigun?
Yes.
Who's like that type of character where it's like they're not in it a whole lot, like, but they're just so fucking like magnetic as a character.
You love them
they're
every time they're on
interesting.
screen.
You love them every time they're on screen. They have like a lot of depth to them, typically that the protagonist doesn't have. Because like typically like the protagonist in a story, the reason protagonist syndrome is a thing, and it's like because like the protagonist has to like have a story and carry the plot simultaneously, while the side character only has to operate within their own story. They don't have like a device to them usually, so they're allowed to be more interesting because they have more time. That's why like the fucking 50th side character, like the 50th most important side character in Game of Thrones is interesting as fuck, you know?
Right.
Because they're just there. There's just being a guy, you know?
Yeah, it's I love this movie. It feels lived in too. Like you can tell there's a history to everything, and like the king, even though he's like an idiot, is also not stupid at the same time.
I like that. Yeah, that's a cool like delineation to that type of character because usually they're just clueless.
Yeah, and he's an idiot, but he's not stupid. Oh, we didn't even talk about Richelieu in the Queen's chamber.
Yeah, I alluded to earlier. Like he's disgusting in this movie sometimes. You're just like Jesus Christ. Like they push, and it's a 90s Disney movie.
Yeah,
and they're pushing the boundaries of like just how fucking gross he is with how just fucking disgusting he is. It's crazy. But
Porthos at the Raiders moment, the guy with the two swords, and and he just opens the fucking trap door.
I feel like that Indiana Jones trope of that type of thing and that type of reaction of just casually killing the guy after he's had this, like, it never gets old to me for some reason. Like, I know I should be tired of it, but I just never get tired of it.
It's a good trope, and it makes you think back to Raiders every time. But I just his voice, and then just hits the rope.
Yep.
By the way, before they reveal he's a pirate, like if you listen to some of the stories he tells, and he talks about sailing, he talks about other certain things, other fights he's been in. When they're shooting cannonballs at him, he's like, "Oh, I hate cannonballs." Like he has much experience with cannonballs, and then later it's revealed Porthos the pirate, and then it's like it all clicks. It all fucking clicks.
Exactly.
And he acts like a pirate, right? Telling all his tall tales and stuff, and wanting to dance, drinking. He's always sitting at a table full of people laughing at his stories. Like he's literally characterized as a pirate the whole movie, but they don't spell it out until that one fight.
Yep.
It's so good. It's so watching that, knowing it, and if you watch for it, it couldn't be more clear. That's exactly what he is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Really good. Check it out.
Good movie is good. Go watch.
Good movie.
You already
good.
have it. Go watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. All right.
If we ever do T-shirts, I feel like good movie, good go watch. It has to be like one of the first that we do, right? We've done that like what, the last 4 episodes in a row now.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Good movie is good. Go watch.
Or bad movie is bad. Don't watch. That's on. Yeah.
The back of the shirt just says you already have it. Like no context. Just you already have it.
You already have it. Oh man. Yeah. So if you would like to follow the show more, we are on Twitter. Just, check us out at SPR Filmcast, where you can follow us for show
at
updates.
SPR Filmcast.
At SPR Filmcast, Ron.
That's where I go for all my show updates.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's so crazy.
They didn't bury the lead. It's about SPR Filmcast. If you found us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. I really appreciate the new listeners we've been able to bring in over on YouTube over the last few weeks.
Yes, the YouTube has been hopping. We appreciate it.
There you go. I think part of it is just how off the fucking wall the friends and family selections are.
Yeah.
Where it becomes more like niche when you're covering The Thing from Another World. And
well, The Thing from Another World is one of our best videos we've ever put on there.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Man.
Out of all the shit that we've done and all the shit we could have done, The Thing from Another World just kind of blew up in the course of like a week.
Yeah, but it makes sense, because there's no competition because it's just a very off the wall selection, but fun to talk about. That's the type of stuff that it's always interesting. Like we had a lot of interesting conversations about it because it's so far out of your wheelhouse going back to a movie of that era that it's an interesting examination of like what makes movies now and what makes movies from
it was
that era.
Also an interesting and weird mix of outdated but still weirdly relevant.
Yeah,
like because a lot of the filming techniques or shit we're doing today that probably had to have been goddamn mind-blowing back then.
Yeah, absolutely. If you would like to leave a rating or review on whichever platform you found us on, that always helps us out too. And share us out to your friends. If you have any movies you see in our back catalog, we typically will hopefully give the spoiler warning in advance of when we start spoiling the movie so you can follow along if it's something you haven't seen. But as always, we recommend you check it out first so you can be there for when Ron and I spoil the thing ahead of putting in the warning. Which has clearly never happened in the show. Not ever.
No, never.
I don't think I have anything left with the plug. So, Ron, would you like to know what we are covering next time?
Yes, please.
All right. I am picking something that I haven't seen. I'm pretty sure you haven't seen because I wanted to give us an excuse to finally fucking watch it.
Ooh.
Nick Cage makes his return to Screenplay Rewind as we will be covering The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Oh, I have not seen this movie.
I have been wanting to watch this movie for
Nicolas Cage playing a fictional Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, you don't need to know anymore. Like, already, good movie, good. Go watch. That's all
already.
That's all I need to hear.
What's interesting is I have a couple of picks up in the air for what I wanted to do for my next one. And one of them is a Nick Cage movie, and I might do a double feature.
Oh, shit.
Why not?
I also have one over the next year. There's another Nick Cage movie that I would like to have on the show. Nick Cage, turning out to be a real powerhouse for Screenplay Rewind.
I heard, as bad as that Renfield movie is, that Nicolas Cage is the best part of that movie as Dracula.
Yeah, I still want to see it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I will probably wait until it's on like HBO Max.
I was gonna say I can wait, but because I wasn't that interested to begin with. But I've seen some clips because he was on Colbert. Talking. It was his first time to ever be on Colbert, by the way. Which is
really
which
he had never been on it before.
He had never been on there before.
That's mental.
And he brought a really cool clip. It looked like it was a what do you call them? Like, that's what Falcon does. Yeah, when we first meet him in Winter Soldier, and what Captain America keeps doing after the blip.
The
focus group is
therapy?
popping into my head, but it's not a focus group.
Group
it's
therapy.
Group therapy. Yes.
Yeah.
He's like in one of those type situations as Dracula, and he like starts levitating around and stuff. But he's like a member of the group somehow, mistakenly or something. It seemed really funny.
That's the thing with like Nick Cage is like even if the movie he's in isn't great,
he is.
I feel like his performance is always memorable and worth watching.
When he's good, he's good, and when he's bad, he's great.
Yeah, he's such a fucking wild card that you're always in for something, you just don't know what you're in for. And I think yeah, I really know next to nothing about The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent outside of its meta. That's literally all I know, and I want to keep it that way because I like going into movies that I know very, very little about. It makes it more fun for me because usually you know fucking everything ahead of time nowadays.
All I know about it is exactly what I said. I've never seen a trailer. I've never read anything about it.
Me neither. And I'm excited because I've been wanting to check it out.
Which is how I went into Wally's Wonderland or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I knew it was Five Nights at Freddy's and that's it. Which I feel like we're going to have the Five Nights at Freddy's movie on the show after covering Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah, I'd forgotten. So we've had Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. We had Gone in 60 Seconds. We had Willy's Wonderland. Have we had any other Nick Cage? I feel like I might be missing something because it's.
I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah, but we're gonna have more. So yeah, just check it out. Because so are you confirmed for the Nick Cage double feature then?
I think that's what I'm gonna do. And
all right, yeah. So
by the way,
be sure to check out the end of the next episode to figure out which Nick Cage movie Ron will select.
I'm not seeing a hard date, which at this point, being in the summer, probably not a good sign for this year. But apparently, that Five Nights at Freddy's movie is supposed to be 2023.
Interesting.
It says expected October 27th, but that's not a hard date. So
gotcha.
I feel like if it's supposed to be October, I mean, that's 4 months from now. If we don't have a hard date by now, that may not be happening.
Oh, and just before I forget, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent is available for the like $3 or $4 rental option on all of the usual suspects like your Apple and your Amazon and everything, but it is available for streaming through a Starz subscription. So if you sign up for like one of the bullshit fucking like 1 week trials, you can check it out. If you need to go that route.
How are people already downvoting Five Nights at Freddy's on IMDb when it's not even out? You haven't seen this movie. Welcome to the internet,
my friend.
You haven't seen this movie. This isn't Steam. What are you doing?
Ron, hypothetical movie bad. Don't go watch.
When we get off here, I'm gonna send you the link to it. These posters are fucking cool. Everyone should go check out these Five Nights posters. These are really cool.
Yeah. Well, we gotta get the fuck out of here.
No, it's fine.
We've been. You want to talk about something else for like 2 hours? I'm down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's go. What else? I feel like we talked about.
How are you, Jeff? We don't talk enough about you.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. The world is definitely not always on fire or anything. It's fine. Everything is.
All right. Well, I have a submersible to catch. I'm supposed to be going to see the Titanic soon, so we probably should get out of here.
Wait, you got 250K?
Not anymore. It's non-refundable.
Missed it by
it's
that
bring
much.
Your own controller too. It's really weird.
Oh shit. I mean, you're at least gonna have a first party controller, right? You're not gonna have a third party controller.
At least it wasn't Pelican. Can I say that? Can I say at least it wasn't Pelican?
Was it Mad Cats? Was that that? On that note, have a good night, everybody. Are we still on for tomorrow? I think Chris had confirmed like 6. Yeah. They are down 1 couch, so we're all gonna have Bobby's lap. The look on her face.
What, is she new to Bobby's lap? Because I'm not. I'm no stranger to Bobby's lap.
Ron said he's no stranger to Bobby's lap, which I think is gonna be the name of the first album, the first LP from Ron.